Hi everyone, welcome to your high vibe energy update for November, meaning that we are looking at things from a higher energetic perspective without ignoring the darker energy, because that's very much a part and parcel of this world that we are in. And speaking of, so in early November, we had the US elections, which obviously is still kind of ongoing, and was generally felt all around the world. So you're not alone over there in the USA. Speaking here from down under, we are very much not only watching, but also feeling, especially us energy sensitives, the intensity and craziness of the whole ordeal. Okay, and obviously on top of that, all the COVID stuff. So yeah, where do we start with that? So what I will focus on is standing out of the picture. That is the best way to deal with these things, to step out of the bubble, because it is a crazy bubble. Using the election as an example, a prime example, a major example, let's just put that whole energy, right, that which I've talked about before, that red and the blue and all of that, put it all in a bubble, okay? There's so much opposition, craziness, anger, vitriol. All right, let's put all that in a bubble and step outside of it so that you can be the observer, like an owl on a branch, okay? And so when you are an owl on the branch or an eagle gliding over things, you are overseeing in a way that you are not involved in it energetically. You don't want to enmesh your energy in it all. And I know that's really hard, especially for those of you who are right there in the heart of it. I get it, or that have, major political affiliations or concerns or whatever. There's a lot going on in the world this year. And really, it was in a weird way, preordained in a way, and also evident in the astrology. But putting all that aside, the stronger message here is that when you step out of it, you can see more clearly. We can all get so involved, right? Whether you had a favorite candidate or not, or were disappointed by the results, or the opposite, where you're so glad and now you're rubbishing the other side. I mean, this is a lot of what's happening, right? And unfortunately, the way this whole construct is set up, it is the two sides. As I said that, I just saw the number 11. So it's representing the two sides, right? The two sides of the pole, which is very much demonstrated more than ever in the elections. This is definitely going to be ongoing, and what I'm hearing is there's going to be some passageways of light that will be provided on a higher energy perspective, kind of like a portal that you can ride through, metaphorically and energetically. But at the same time, on the same token, there is the dark energy ride. Okay, it's like being in the wrong train or stopping at the wrong station and getting off and being in the wrong crowd, okay? So there's a lot of this feeling of different trains, different crowds, and then which train should I be on, or where's my train, people, and so on. So it's really interesting that, if you've been listening to me for a while, every now and again, quite a few times in the last few months, I get these train or rail line analogies, but they really are, this is how spirit comes through. They come through with metaphor messages. And if you really listen through and feel into it, there's a deeper overriding message there. We have to simplify things also. It all gets so complicated and you can get so bottled up with this stuff, right? So there's too many trains, too many stations. And that whole idea of oneness and unity that so many people on the spiritual path, or who are just fed up with everything and just want things to be over and better for humanity, that one train is something that cannot yet fully integrate or be formed. They show me now a picture of a series that I watched about half a year ago. I think it was on Netflix, about a train. I can't remember the title right now, but basically it's like the end of the world, and this one train has to, starting with the letter W, has to go around the world non-stop without stopping. As soon as it stops or someone goes outside, they die. But the idea of that was that it was split up into a class system, right? And you had the lowest of the low, the poor people right at the back tail end of the train, all dirty with barely any supplies and horrible food, right up to then there was all these middle levels, right up to the top, of course, which was first class and la-di-da and all the rest of it. And then there was tyranny on the train. That's what they're showing now represents what is going on, okay? So, I'm sure the train analogies will keep coming, and it really is. So I hope you know what that series is. I'll try and find out separately, but it's so like that. That's what's happening. It's class systems. It's any dividing people up, division into whatever color, race, religion, politics. Which way do you sway? Blah 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 about every single issue and thing. But we have to remember, just like the Me Too movement, some things are set up, and so, while it might appear on the outer surface as having a good message, and I'm sure it still does have good messages and it has invoked positive change in certain areas, it's also, you can look at the other side of it being set up for a reason, a distraction, what's really going on, what is underneath the surface of that. And so one could argue or postulate there's another movement starting with B, and I won't get into the politics of it, but that as in division over colour is also really appeared to me and lots of other people as well as a setup, okay? And it's not to say that there isn't a deeper message and a good message in there and positive revolution. There's also the other side of the coin. And the other side of the coin is the chaos, is the destruction. And, with everything going on with the elections, with the voting system and all of that being questioned, this is going to continue for some time, and there's going to be great uncertainty. And this is all leading up to the eclipse season. So starting end of November, moving into December, we begin with the eclipses. And really, this is when we're going to be hearing a lot more stuff come out in the news again. Now, we're already this news, and we're all sick of it. Whether it's, it really went from COVID to the elections and that's all mixed up again. I really do not trust in the current situation. It's not resolved. But one thing I will say, without putting emphasis on one person over the other, there is definitely a misjustice happening. There is definitely lying happening and cover-ups and all the rest of it. And there is definitely, more than ever, high levels of censorship in the media. And this is a problem. This is control. This is where people have to wake up to the next level, because we are being controlled and will be controlled even further, especially if the ones who want to take over everything at the moment and continue on do get what they want. Because as I've said before, if COVID hasn't taught you anything, wait till the next stages, because it's bad. So one thing that I've noticed and is that President Trump is very, very censored. And whatever you think one way or another, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the censorship. So, for example, my husband noticed for himself, so this is a good thing about COVID, as in when we look at the blessings later on. My husband started to notice how controlled the mainstream, or as Trump says, lamestream, which actually makes me laugh, and it's very true, media presents things. It is so controlled. It is such a narrative. It is not funny. It is so blatantly obvious that if it cannot be seen by a general person, then they're not, then I don't know what. It's like a zombie walking around, because so for example, so months ago, when we're looking into this whole COVID thing and doing alternative research and so on, and mind you, as I've always said, I'm the spiritual one, right? But my husband had several months off work because of COVID. And so, he started just looking up just a basic fact, right, about Trump, just basic facts, like as you would look up anybody, Trump, Biden, this, that. And and everything was negative, 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 negative. And every article that I looked at from the mainstream media is always negative, biased, strongly critical, not just critical, but also really rubbishing. And that's just not right, because it doesn't matter who this person is or not. It's not right to present articles in this way that is supposed to be fact and, misleading people or just being biased, at least at the very least. And it's really wrong. And so when you see that Trump's tweets, if you have a look at his Twitter account, there are all these posts, which you probably know, but they're being deleted by these so-called fact checkers. And so here's the issue. So it started on Facebook, or at least that's where I noticed it a few months ago. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, we start getting these fact checker messages. So if someone posts something about something, and if Facebook or the people who control Facebook or the ones above that trying to control everything notice it, then they will just pop up this fact checker message that basically says that that the link or whatever that this person was sharing has been proven to be wrong and goes against blah, blah, blah. And it is absolute baloney and BS, right? And now they're doing that on Twitter with Trump. And I think it is outrageous. Doesn't matter what you think of Trump or not. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying whether I'm even pro or con. I'm just talking about general, bias and what should be presented from an objective point of view. How dare the president be censored? That is outrageous. It really is. If the president were Hitler or something, some kind of figure like that, which he clearly isn't, then okay, but no, this is not okay. This is highly wrong. It's just a joke. So, on that premise, I came across a video just a couple of days ago, and I've shared it on my Facebook page if you want to have a look. But this strong woman has decided to sue the fact checkers because she found out that the guy who set up, I think his first name's Alan, but you can watch the video to be sure of all the facts and details. The guy that set up fact checkers is used to work for the CNN, i.e. lamestream media, for like 29 years or something, as a chief editor or something like that. And and so there is no law to it. There is no legal basis for this fact-checking bullshit new system that has just conveniently popped up. So she is suing them, and she is getting a really good lawyer, mind you, as well. Like, this is good stuff. So, this reminds me of something I've been wanting to say for a while. And this is where we get high vibe, okay? Because yes, high vibe, I don't say that word lightly. I'm an energy healer, so I understand and feel the difference of energy signatures from, low frequencies right up to high frequencies, and there's a big range in between. And so that when, for example, you have your energy cleared, you feel much higher and lighter, and when you feel more at peace and calm. And then when you're in that chaotic energy, you feel more dense and heavy, right? And so my intention always is to come from that perspective. But as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm not going to ignore the darkness, and that's a really important, valid key point. And I made a video about that not too long ago, which you can watch. So even though I bring up stuff that might not feel nice, it's not meant for any harm or anything like that. It's for educational purposes. It's for to look at things a bit more deeply than surface level. And then, as I often say in my sessions, we've got to go down to rise up. Okay, so by the end of the session, we'll be rising up again. And so one of the things I've noticed generally, there's been so much going on in the world, right? And people are just so fed up this year. It's just been a massive, massive game changer. And so a really important thing to keep in mind is that there are people waking up. I gave the example of the woman who is suing the fact checkers. And I think that's just fabulous, right? And she's not some crazy person and some sort of deranged activist or anything like that. She is a clear, well-spoken, articulate woman. Her husband is right behind her with it. And it is, it's a mission of a good intention, right? Because she understands. She understands about censorship. I think it started also, which she explains in her videos, because she had, a video or an article where she interviewed a doctor of good standing who was talking about some things to do with COVID that might go a little bit against the mainstream narrative, and it got censored, and it did not make any sense whatsoever. And this is what's happening everywhere, okay? So we don't want to be the sheep who are just trusting all the censored, controlled, directed propaganda information. Right in the beginning of when this COVID stuff happened, one of the first words that came to my mind is A, this is an invented, manufactured thing, and B, the word Nazi came up, and we're not to take that lightly. You would be misguided to think that Nazism does not exist anymore, or that it is displayed in other ways, that is still like a river of blood running through the world, and it's very true. And so, these things are in the background. So while all that kind of thing's happening, we have people, waking up around the world and stepping into their power, doing their bit, right? We've all got our different avenues, areas of expertise, okay? So, I've got mine, you've got yours, everyone's got their own little thing. Some people, they do bigger things because that's their life, that's their pathway. For others, it's just, it's regular stuff, but it's not to say that one is more important or better than the other. It's just, it is what it is. We're all different. And so people I've really noticed this. If you think, oh God, there's no hope in politics, blah, 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 blah. Well, think about the change that's going to happen from this current state of affairs. It only has to. So many good people are waking up all around the world, whether they're spiritual or not, it really doesn't matter. There's all sorts of different kinds of awakening that can happen. People use the word wake up without really understanding what it means. It's just waking up about the truth of things. And so I've seen, for example, there are people that are going for positions in politics who are awake. There is this guy in Australia, I've forgotten his name right now, but I think it's something like Richard Bosi, Baducci or something like that. Riccardo Baducci. And he is setting up a party, and he is speaking about, he has a high understanding of things going on. He mentions things like the Illuminati, which is another censored word, but oh well, I said it. And so he's in Australia, and there's been this thing where, pedophilia is a global issue, as I've mentioned before, and in politics. And so there has been this terrible cover-up of a former late Prime Minister of Australia, who is said to have been one of those. I'm trying to use my language carefully, but this is actually, proper, as in, gone through the courts and all of that. And there's other people involved who are in these high positions of politics and power. And it was a major cover-up that the courts decided to cover up for 90 years. Whatever you call that, I can't think of the term now, but in order to keep things closed and hidden and secret. And people know about this, people like myself who look into these things, but not the general public. And so he has said, if he wins, he is going to immediately, the first thing he's going to do is to go into the courts and get that redacted. And, and there's so many things, he speaks the positive things about, all these other alternative things that we can do. Right. And without it being like alternative, as in, a lot of people think of alternative as in hippies and, green tea and veganism. It's not, that's not necessarily what it means. It just means not going by this corrupt, terrible, horrible system. Like good people, families, individuals, people who just want good for their children and humanity and in the world, right? Okay, so outside of that, there's another guy who's going for politics too. His name is Billy. His surname is something like Te Katawa, which is a Maori surname. So he's half Maori, Indigenous, and he also knows about all this stuff and speaks out about it. Okay, so there's people all around the world who are just doing their bit. You get people, the whistleblowers, the good ones, who are, trying to get information out. Good doctors speaking against the negative way that this whole COVID thing has been handled, and all the BS with the numbers, the BS with the, it's not to say it doesn't exist and it's not an issue and that it's not this and that, dangerous for old people and sick people and so on. However, the whole thing, just obviously that is ludicrous. And, they speak out about it. And these are educated, logical, rational, brilliant people, And so much of this is going on. So there's good eggs with the bad eggs, and this is what we're to remember. And we can think of it as springing up all across the globe. For some people, it might mean protesting and, positive protesting or activism. And for other people, it might be setting up a community or noticing that there's some issue for some thing and doing their bit. This is what it is. This is how it all comes together, right? And I guess I'm just mentioning it because it's hard to see otherwise when all you see is the other side of the coin. All right, so getting into the energetics, we are just now phasing out of the post-shadow period of Mercury retrograde. So that will calm down a little bit. We've just had the 11/11 date of November. It really is, it's like the beginning of this gateway of change. But, we've still got intensity coming up. There has just been, so now in the US, November 12th, Jupiter conjunct Pluto. This is a conjunction of planets, meaning a joining together of two big, intensifying planets, which has happened 3 times this year. It happened in April, June, and now again in November. And this is the energy of global transformation. It pinpoints and emphasizes how the world is governed, how it's set up. Pluto takes all of us into this deeper sense of things and this feeling of combustion and change and wanting to make deep improvements and overcome these grand obstacles, right? And the Jupiter side is opening up the possibilities and creating this bigness. But it's all in its combustion sort of conjunction energy is highlighting power. Who or what has gone too far? The political agenda, secret organizations, the what's behind the government. It's not just the government. There's what's behind that and what's behind that again. The top of the pyramid, so to speak. Okay, so the first 2 of these conjunctions this year was like an introduction of this energy, and there was this great review of how to handle things, how to handle this whole COVID situation, how to handle the changes in our lives, and the transformations that were occurring, whether you see it or not. So now is more of a time of integration. So I would say in the next few months, we're integrating, processing, and releasing everything, this whole combustion engine blow up, and we are moving those wheels for transformation, so of change. So you will have had things come up from the past also here and there, such as a person who annoyed you before and you think, why is that annoying me again? Or a memory, why is that coming up again, right? This, if you haven't had it already, will be coming up in the next month or so, or dare I say few months, but whatever. It's coming up for us to process and release. The more we work on this now, from being an owl on the tree or that eagle in the air, looking over things, right, and not being so involved and engrossed in it, then that's where the learning comes, and that's where the releasing patterns can happen. Realize and release. They are the key words the angels gave me years ago, and they really are true when it comes to energy, our emotions, and everything that comes up for us. So with the eclipse energy coming up, which I'll talk about that in future videos, there's a great, what I just heard now is catapult for change, catalyst for change, moving into 2021. This is going to be the new eon. It's important for the leaders to be the right people for now. When I say that, it's not ultimate right, people. But if you had to choose from two evils, one greater than the other, wouldn't you choose the lesser one, right? Like one of the lesser bad dudes from Star Wars rather than Darth Vader? Yeah, you go for that one. If that's the case, if that's what you believe, at least, So, however, some people who might be conveyed to be a certain way, a baboon and an idiot and whatever, it might not be. It's just, things are not as they seem. So these people have been put in place now. However, this will change and dilute and change. And other people will come on board, right? So what I really feel, even though I wasn't going to go into December yet, but what I would say now, which I'll talk about again another time, is that in late December, roughly mid to late December, there's going to be a shift, a change, and we will be entering a new, it's like that's when the new decade happens. However, so we have the date 21st of December, 2020 of this year, and that's 2112 or 1221. Those numbers are said differently depending on whether you lived down under or up in the northern hemisphere. So basically, that is the reverse of that important date of the Mayan calendar of 2012, which was the 21st of the 12th month of 2012, right? And there's this play on this numbers again. This is like, now we are reaching the epoch of the great change in evolution, the next massive phase of 9 to 10 years after that, leading into 2030. I would say 9 years if you take 2021 to 2030. And if you follow deeper thought and you research things that are otherwise dubbed a conspiracy theory, right? But if you look into things on a deeper level, then you would have heard about the 2030 agenda, okay? And so, which is like a crux point. And we don't want the wrong people to have the power and control from now/2021 leading up to then, okay? So it's a battle. I've also said from early on this year, it's a spiritual battle. It really is. Spiritual warfare, 110%. What we are really striving for on a grander scale, those of us who are, us good people of the world, we're striving towards autonomy, freedom, change. We're sick of the old ways, and it's really being underlined this year more than ever. So this whole period now has been in the Scorpio season, and Scorpio is always intense. But then later in November, we're going to move into the next season, the next star sign of Sagittarius. So there will be some sunshine on things, some light over things, but at the same time, people will have to watch their bluntness. Okay, so speaking of Scorpio, though, around November 14th, we have the new moon in Scorpio, which is the third supermoon in a row, super new moon that we've had. So meaning, as I've told you in previous videos, when the other supermoons came up, is that's like the moon is right up to your face, like a person who's right up at your face. Okay, so Scorpio being intense, that's, you could possibly get really tired or feel really intense and emotional and a bit crazy at that time. Or failing that, you could feel this intense drive and passion for change. We've just had Mars go direct as well now, which is just happening. So that means that we could have more ambition and drive and feel like that fast forward button can finally sort of get into place. But it also means that Mars, being the god of war and so on, and masculinity, patriarchy, that we can expect to see that too. And we have definite patriarchal figures in the limelight right now. So towards the end of November, 28th November, we have Neptune stationing direct. Now, I'm not an astrologer at all. However, I just feel into the energy. So in many of my videos, I'm not even talking about or thinking about or looking into astrology. And sometimes I do. It's a bit of both. It's whatever comes up at the time. But I've been more interested in astrology this year, especially seeing how it really links up with everything. However, the information that you receive from me is through intuition and a feel through things, a feel of what that energy is bringing. So around the 28th of November, for a while there, you might be feeling a bit more sort of daydreamy, your subconscious mind opening up, your intuition, and that can bring out a sense of reverie and fantasy, or it can make you a bit dizzy and and flighty. So make sure that you're sort of grounded at that time, but also it will be like the fog's lifting up. Okay, and that is so important because it's like a grand big fog is over our eyes, and when that lifts up, things are so much more easier to work out, intuit, discern and see more clearly. And then we have November 30th, full lunar eclipse, moon in Gemini, and then we just start that whole eclipse cycle. Now, it's not to say that on that day the eclipse starts, because you feel the energy before then, so we're already ramping up to that now. So think of it as the 11:11 doorway, opening up that gateway, opening up through this portal now, leading up to this lunar eclipse, and then into the next eclipse in December, and so on. So I'll talk about that more next time. But communication will be important, community will be important, the sharing of any ideas that you have, strategies for change, all that stuff I was kind of talking about before. And just to end off now too, I would say that that energy I was talking about, or that idea of people sort of waking up and doing their thing, whether it's an everyday person or someone that's out there doing bigger things, that energy is definitely going to be showcased in 2021 when people get together more, come together more. Okay, we've had this separation of people with COVID this year, but then we've also had this ironic coming together of people through the internet, through Zoom and so on, and teleconferencing. And so on the 21st of December, there is this major gateway of change happening. Okay, I mentioned before that link to the Mayan calendar of 2012, but also we're going to move into this Aquarius energy. Okay, and so I will talk about that more too at another time. But that is also about social revolution, individuality, uniqueness, coming together as communities, projects, that sort of modern tribal kind of mindset of community, and change for the good, but also technology and all of that. And if technology goes into the wrong hands, as I mentioned before, leading up to 2030, that's where you get the AI, that's where, the negative effects of 5G go the next level, that's where you get all the negative implications of not having privacy and all the rest of it. And so we can also look at the positive side, which is, so much more through the internet and global sort of energies rising, because the energies have been getting higher and higher, from especially that 2012 period, but also before that, there's been this build up. But when the light is shining so high, and when there is this acceleration on Earth that has been happening through these grand shifts of awakening, then the darkness comes up, like I've mentioned before, like little critters crawling out of a dark rock that you've lifted up, or out of a cave, right, when the light shines in it. And so these are the after effects. And now those little critters are trying anything to scavenge around and do whatever things they can for their big master grand plan, right? And that master grand plan does not suit humanity. So there's this greater waking up of consciousness and a more concerted effort for change. Definitely feeling revolution, more what's the word for that, civil unrest, which I've mentioned heaps of times also from the beginning of the year onwards, just more of all that, but there is the good and the bad and the ugly. But amongst it all, have a look at the good aspects and grow that because it's there, and there's definitely a more greater sense of community. And this is where when we look at the restrictions, where there's, travel, I feel like it's up and down with things like travel as well. So they're all things that we are leaning into and working towards. So I would really suggest that now, towards the end of the year, we start finalizing things, we start processing and just releasing all that stuff that comes up, because a new key, a new doorway will be opening, and I'll be happy to assist you through that process and bring you into the light, and so that we can journey together over the dark shadows, through everything, good and bad, and get to the other side. And so that next year, that there will be more clarity, truth, and discoveries to be found. But we've got to get through these hurdles at the moment. So speaking of hurdles, let's just do some releasing of whatever you need to let go of right now. So let's just, so if you can, sit still. All right, and I'm just going to go through and think of grouping together all the negative energy that you've consumed, whether it's your own thoughts, recognize any anger that you've had, right? We've all had it. I've had it too. I got really mad with someone. I won't go into it now. Okay, so all your anger, all your anguish, any grieving, anything you're unhappy with about everything that's going on, all that consumption of stuff, right? All right, think of it all as this dark energy blob, and now we have all the outside energy affecting you, of other people, the situation, events, right? Shrink it all up into that blob. I'm just doing that now. Just recognize it. That's always the first step. Okay, recognize. So as I said before, realize and release. Can't release until it's been realized. Not properly, not fully. Okay, good. I'm just grouping all of that up now. Good. All right, be willing to realize. Good. And now I'm bringing in that light. And thank you, angels. Always work up, straight up to God level, source level, whatever you like to call that. Creator, pure energy. Releasing all your worries, concerns, all those binds. Now shining the light in. Feel that light coming in brighter and brighter. Pushing away the darkness. Being ready to let go, breathing through the process. Through breathing, you can release that energy. So, you might realize, because I'm feeling it now, I'm feeling that a lot of you are holding your breath in, or you're shallow breathing without realizing that also comes with the anxiety and the everything. So breathing in, breathing out to release. Keep doing that. Good. Just going to release that energy some more. It's really like pushing away a dark blob. Good. Be ready to let that go, 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 go. Down, down, down and out. Beautiful. All right, let's allow the angels to send you some healing. Asking to raise your vibrations. And you might need to come back and do this again if you're feeling unsettled. And just sit in that feeling of silence, a bit more calm. Acknowledge any feelings, memories, anything that comes up for you. I suggest that you sit in that in the next while. For some of you, it might be a bit more stubborn and you just need more time to go through it and release. And just keep going through that process. All right, beautiful. Sending you lots of love, and I'll talk again soon.